Hello, welcome to my channel, Sea of Infinity. So in this video, I just wanted to talk about the topic or idea of utopia. But before I do jump in and delve too much into the video, I do just want to apologize as well that I haven't uploaded a lot recently. These past couple of weeks or what have you have just been so many downloads and integration and all sorts of other things that go on with this journey. And so, just been taking time for myself to kind of, rest and absorb and go through all that as we do. And I just felt called to mention that as well, in case through your own journey, if you're, going through periods of having, greater downloads or feeling a need to rest and integrate certain things or what have you, just knowing that that's great to do and all part of the journey and the purpose and cycle of these sort of things. It's important and great to take that slow time and down time to integrate certain things and allow certain things to kind of work their way around in your mind, body and soul sort of aspects. And also to allow, a clearing out of old energies for new energies to come through and new information to be received and integrated. So if you feel a call to rest and integrate in that way, go with what you feel called to do and what feels right for you. Trust the flow of that process. All right, so back into the topic of Utopia, which is a favorite of mine. Hence, I've got my little Utopia tattoo on my wrist. Often ideas with that sort of utopian type aspect and way of life and society or what have you is so often kind of talked about or thought about in a way that it's just a really wonderful fantasy or what have you, which kind of seems funny in the aspect of how we're so on board with a dystopian type reality being an easy enough reality to experience and an easy enough thing to accept as something that's real and possible and something that we quite often have already experienced in many aspects. And Utopia is kind of like the opposite of that dystopia, right? And in an infinite universe, there's opposites of everything kind of existing, up, down, cold, hot, and what have you. So if we're able to accept so readily that, dystopian societies and realities can exist and can be possible and can be something that we can, delve into, then so is true for Utopia as well. And so kind of having a little more of that sort of, positive and sort of aligned aspect to utopian ways of thinking, of not just thinking that's just a fantasy while dystopian can be something very real, not allowing that sort of dystopian mindset to be kind of a little seed sprouting in our imagination or our beliefs of what's real or possible or routes we could be going down, and instead kind of putting that energy and planting those seeds more towards a utopian route that's just as equally possible and real and all that sort of vibe. And hence for myself why I have my little Utopia tattoo, because when I was younger, I had, as many sort of people that resonate with the whole sort of starseed journey or whatever sort of way you like to frame it or look at it, but those sort of ideas, being younger, I did, resonate a lot with those sort of utopian ideals or the idea of, not necessarily building or creating a more sort of utopian type future, but more so kind of, aligning to it or returning to it. And as we can often kind of come into this, life and world and reality almost with that little light, guiding the way, or that sort of, blueprint within us that kind of, feeds that possibility and that truth to us in those ways that sometimes say, you know, more I don't know what great term to use, but like ordinary, if you will, or more just, you know, general humans would kind of, you know, disregard or think is, you know, just silly fantasy or what have you. Whereas, you know, myself personally, when I was younger, that sort of energy and ideal and that feeling of the way reality is, you know, currently or has been currently, and the way the world has been, just doesn't feel quite right or normal to me. And I always just had, you know, like these feelings and visions and such of another way of life and existence, and the way that felt more normal and natural to me, kind of like, you know, that feeling of a home that you're not quite in, but you know exists somewhere. And, you know, as is often in this sort of 3D human matrix reality we find ourselves in, you know, I was often, you know, told those sort of things, or, you know, oh, that's not possible, or that's not real, or this is just the way it is, and this is just, you know, the way things are, and you just need to, you know, get back down to earth and, you know, get back down and ground yourself, get back to reality, and, you know, all those sort of dismissive type comments. And so, you know, when I was younger, hearing that sort of stuff, and then being told things as well that, you know, it's just because I'm you know, an imaginative child, and that when I grow older, I'll understand and I'll know more, and that, you know, all adults, as we grow up, we just kind of, you know, then we understand it is what it is, and, you know, what have you, kind of like just, you know, becoming those robots conforming to the 3D matrix reality and system. And so hearing all that and having that sort of energy directed towards me was horrifying. I was like, what the heck? Like, no way. Like, I don't want to become some, you know, like brainwashed zombie part of the matrix system in that way. And so the idea of that, you know, maybe one day I'll grow up and kind of, you know, forget this sort of idea and truth that I feel and resonate with inside myself, and that I'll just kind of, you know, forget it all and just become another brainwashed, programmed adult like, you know, the rest of much of society, really horrified me. And so that's why when I was younger, I planned to get that tattoo. And then as soon as I turned 18 and was legally able to get a tattoo, I went and got it done so that I would, you know, just in case. So I'd never forget, never forget that sort of call and that truth that I feel within myself, and what feels right and true and real for me. And I do note as well, not exactly important to mention, but I put like a little E in front of, you know, the traditional spelling of Utopia, as it kind of felt resonant for me in the way of how more traditionally the ideas of utopia and things are kind of talked about and discussed, you know, in our external reality. Didn't quite fully resonate with me and how it feels for me and what I believe. So I kind of wanted to, you know, put a little unique twist on it for it to be like my utopia, like the world within that I feel aligned to, you know, the truth that I resonate with, rather than that sort of external idea of utopia, but the internal idea of utopia. So I just put the little E in front of it to really like kind of hone in on, you know, not forgetting and staying attuned and connected to that truth that I feel within myself. And so I just wanted to make this video to kind of, you know, discuss that, and to, you know, encourage you as well to hone into your own truth and what feels right for you, and, you know, what your utopia is, and, you know, holding on to those seeds of possibility in this infinite universe that we do exist in, and, you know, like allowing yourself to become energetically aligned to that truth within yourself. Not in a way that you feel like you need to conform conform, sorry, to external, you know, ideas or ways of doing things or beliefs or what have you, or that you just have to completely blindly follow external systems, but instead, you know, really remembering to hone into your own truth within, what feels right for you, what lights you up, what's your truth, what's your dream, what's your belief, what's your utopia in that aspect, and not feeling, you know, discouraged or dissuaded to forget that, or to just call that a fantasy, or to just kind of, you know, let all that energy be shoved away or to dissipate. Instead, to be encouraged and emboldened to believe and to hone into that and to curate that within yourself, for that to be able to reflect more greatly in your external world and reality. You know, we live in an infinite, unlimited universe and world, and so, you know, the future is also infinite and unlimited in that aspect. And so not being afraid to also keep your own mind and heart and, you know, energy aligned to that infinite, unlimited nature, and, you know, see where it goes and where it takes you and where it takes us all, individually and together. You know, we are divine beings, we are powerful beings, and, you know, there's no telling what sort of future and what sort of reality we really can create and curate for everyone to experience. All right, well, I'll leave this one here for now. Sending you so much peace, love, light, and blessings as always. Bye.